So for those of you who don't know, Nike celebrated the 25th anniversary of the Nike Mercurial silo. Now I've already made a few videos on the Mercurial already, but I'm going to end it with a tier list. So I'll be rating these Mercurials based on a range of different things, so aesthetics, performance, ads, or a whole host of things will come into corporation when I am rating these different Mercurial silos, or iterations should I say. Now for this, I'm only going to include like the mainline Mercurial, so things like the Carbon SL, the GS, they're not going to be included in this tier list. Now the tiers I'm going to be using are a bit different. You're not going to get the usual S to whatever letter. Here I'm going to use like the kind of Nike takedown and tier list if you want to use it, those tier references basically. So Elite, Pro, Club, Academy, and then Park. Park's not really one when it comes to boots, but you sometimes see like socks or some of like teamwear with the Park part at the end of it, so I'm going to use that in this tier list. So starting off where it all began, the Nike Mercurial released in 1998 ahead of the 98 World Cup in France, and the boot was specifically made for Ronaldo, a phenomenal. Now, this is probably one of, if not the most revolutionary and iconic boots of all time. The first Mercurial, we all know that famous picture of Ronaldo picking up his winner's medal and he's got the Mercurials tied around his neck, not in that way. But yeah, it's just the iconic boot and an iconic colorway, so we're gonna start off strong. So, you know, it was released in 98, so I was maybe 1.5 years old when it was released, so I can't really talk too much about performance, but I can talk about maybe the ads and the kind of like the iconic thing like I've just mentioned before. But I think we're starting off strong. I think the first Mercurial is gonna go in the elite tier. Next we have the Nike Match Mercurial, which was released in 2000. Well, this Mercurial is pretty much almost forgotten. No one really talks about it too much. Won by Ronaldo, of course, and then also like Thierry Henry as well. This one is a more of a forgotten Mercurial, I would say. They recently made the remake a few months, or yeah, around a year or a month ago. But in terms of actual design of the boot, it's not the greatest looking boot in the world. I'll tell you that, it's quite ugly, I'd say. So, you know, I'm gonna put this one in Park. Now we have our first Vapor, released in 2002 ahead of the 2002 World Cup in South Korea and Japan. It was introduced in the Secret Tournament advert, so that was Nike's ad campaign for that upcoming World Cup. So this is like one of the most iconic Mercurials, you know, it's the first one. It was headlined again by the likes of Thierry Henry and Ronaldo again. We're gonna hear those two like a lot for the first few Mercurial, I'd say. But yeah, you know, it's in terms of its design, it looks sleek. It doesn't look, I wouldn't say it looks fast, but for the time period, I guess you could say it. You know, Ronaldo had that very iconic chrome silver colorway, which we tend to see throughout the years with the Mercurial. And of course, that's the boot he scored the winner in against Germany. So, but overall, in terms of design, very simple, very sleek. I'm gonna give it Club. Next is the Vapor 2. Now, the Vapor 2 is probably where I started to really get involved in, like, get interested in full boots in general. So, I'm an Arsenal fan, if you can't tell. My favorite player of all time is Thierry Henry, if you can't tell. And he wore these boots. I remember when I used to go to Arsenal matches, I still go to Arsenal matches, but when I was younger, these were the boots that he was wearing. I remember him scoring a lot of goals in the Vapor 2, and it's bringing us a lot of fun memories. It's more like a slight tweak on the Vapor 1, so again, I'm going to put this one in Club. To the Vapor 3. Now, if you've watched my other Mercurial videos, you know how I feel about the Vapor 3. The Vapor 3 is probably the best looking Mercurial silo of all time. I don't think anything really literally comes close in terms of aesthetics. The nearest competition I would say is maybe the Superfly 4, but no, Vapor 3, cleanest looking Mercurial of all time in my opinion. Came around the Jogger Bonito adverts for the 2006 World Cup, which is my favorite World Cup ad campaign. Had a lot of iconic wearers, again Ronaldo, Thierry Henry, Ibrahimovic, Cristiano Ronaldo this time around as well was coming into the fold. Like, loads of great players wore this boot, and then I think this is probably the only Mercurial silo where I pretty much would wear every single colorway, so this one's going straight into Elite. However, I would say that performance-wise, I've heard it's very uncomfortable, but I had takedowns of it when I was younger, so I wouldn't really know about the Elites. We have the Vapor 4. Now, for me, the Vapor 4 is probably the most influential of Nike football boots in terms of its design, what it meant in terms of transitions into like the face of Nike football from El Phenomenal to Cristiano Ronaldo. For a lot of reasons as well. The design is inspired the Superfly 4, the lace cover, I think, and it was the first kind of Mercurial to have like a tier above the actual Vapor itself in the Vapor SL. Yeah, so, and for me, it has one of the best ads that come along with it in terms of the launch with Ronaldo racing a Bugatti. So in terms of comfort and performance, I had takedowns, but again, it sounded like it was a uncomfortable Mercurial, so I'm just going to put this one in Pro. Now we have the first Superfly, which was released in 2009. It was first worn, I think the first big game that it was worn in was Man United versus Inter Milan in the Champions League first knock around the quarterfinals. Not quarterfinals, sorry, last 16. Yeah, I remember Cristiano Ronaldo and Ibrahimovic were the main guys wearing them back then. And it was the first time, like, you know, for a lot of things with Nike, I think it's the first time they introduced Flywire. Now, in terms of looks, I'm a bit split with the look. I've always felt a bit split. I think this is where it starts to depend a lot on the colorway of a lot of these kind of Mercurial designs. Performance-wise, it was a bit shaky. You had the issue where they had to delay the release because of the kind of players have the carbon fiber sole plate was splitting in the middle of games, which is not ideal, not a good look for Nike as well. Yeah, so actually, I think it was meant to be launched in February, but it was, I think, delayed till October because of that. But anyway, yeah, performance-wise, I don't think it was the greatest, but it was a step that I want to put Academy. Would be the Vapor 2. So the Vapor 2 was pretty much like a stepping stone from the not the Vapor 2, sorry, the Superfly 2, should I say? Yeah, it was a stepping stone from the first Superfly. Not too much change. I think the sole plate changed. The stud configuration, should I say? But again, I'm gonna put this one in Academy as well because the upper I heard was very, very stiff, and I think this is when Ronaldo started doing the hot water trick. So people might think the hot water trick is like a useful hack, but really and truly, if you need such a damaging process to actually break in a pair of boots, it says something about the boot rather than it being a useful hack. When it came to the design of it, actually, it had a few quite cool colorways, but you know, I think it's making up for the lack of performance, in my opinion, or comfort. Similar story with the Superfly 3 as well, very stiff. It looked fast, it was a good looking boot, in my opinion. It had many different good looking colorways, but again, stiff as hell. This one's quite controversial for a lot of people, but this is the Vapor 8, and there's so many things I love about the Vapor 8. I think this was a period of time where, because of the previous three silos of the Mercurial, I think Adidas had really taken over the speedboot category with the F50. F50 was dominating, in my opinion. I think it was just a much better boot than the Mercurial. But I think the Vapor 8 was Nike's stepping back into the arena when it came to speed boots. I think the Vapor 8 is an important speed boot for Nike. And I remember I got the launch colorway, the orange launch colorway. I think the only downside to it was maybe there was a bit of stud pressure, and the suede kind of Tajin synthetic that they use on the finish on the upper was kind of stained or scuffed quite easily. Even when I was trying to break them in my house, I realized there was some black scuffs, but I don't know where it came from. But apart from that, I think this boot typifies what every Mercurial should feel like. I used to do athletics as well, and this is the closest thing that felt like a sprinting shoe when it came to the Mercurial. And it comes with probably one of my favorite colorways in that pink and white clash colorway for the 2012 Euros. So this one for me is the best Mercurial of all time, and it's going straight into Elite. This is the Vapor 9. Vapor 9 kind of stole the flow of the Vapor 8. It's very similar-ish. The thing that really changed was the texturing on the upper. You kind of this kind of golf ball kind of texture on it. That's for extra grip, I guess. And then they kind of reinforce the sole plate so it's a bit more responsive. But performance wise, I think it was a good Mercurial, but I think it a bit of it shine gets stolen because of the kind of two Mercurials that sit opposite it, so like the Superfly 4 and the Mercurial Vapor 8. So for that, I'm just going to put in Pro. Pretty much a lot of people say Mercurial, in my opinion, is probably the most innovative, not innovative, but the most high-tech Mercurial. I think Nike poured all they had in terms of like technology and all they had into this boot. So you've got fly wire, you've got fly knit, you've got a dynamic fit collar, carbon fiber sole plate, and of course I'm talking about the Superfly 4 / the Vapor 10. Two are probably regarded as the best amongst all the Mercurials for a lot of people, not me necessarily. I think a lot of that has to do with the kind of ads being released around the World Cup, and I think Nike went overboard with the kind of, well, let me not say overboard, but they went 10 for 10 with the ads that year of the last game and the winner stays, which were probably some of Nike's best work, and I think that plays into the kind of memories that people have of this boot. For people, 2014 was their favorite World Cup. Well, and also as well from a aesthetic standpoint, the Mercurial 10 / the Superfly 4 is probably the second best looking of all the silos in my opinion. And in my opinion, you know, I really want to put it Pro, but just because of all the stuff I said, I think even though the performance I feel lacks a bit in terms of like the dynamic fit collar felt a bit awkward because of how high it wasn't that form fitting at the time, but I think it still has to go in Elite. Next is the Superfly 5 / the Vapor 11. I'm gonna have a hard time keeping track now. Yeah, so I think this is a controversial one, but in terms of performance, I think every kind of Superfly after the Superfly 4 just improved the performance aspect of it. So with the Superfly 5, I think Nike changed, they got rid of the carbon fiber for more kind of TPU, flexible, still responsive sole plate. Flyknit stayed. I'm not sure what, I think Flywire might have gone, but yeah, the dynamic fit collar was a much better thing as well. So I think it was an overall good boot. I think it got released around just before the Euros. Again, another iconic ad with the switch with Cristiano Ronaldo switching bodies with like a kid. A very iconic ad again. And in terms of performance, another good boot. So I'm gonna put this one in. I'm gonna say Pro as well. Up next is the Vapor 12 / the Superfly 6. Again, another improvement upon the previous version, a very solid boot, and I think this was Nike almost perfecting the Mercurial in terms of performance as well. So they introduced a split sole plate, which was on the earlier Mercurials as well. We hadn't seen that for a while, and then I would want to say the only thing was lacking was the upper was a bit stiff from what I had. Never actually got a chance to wear this model, but from what reviewers say, I think based on that, I think it would go in. I think I'm going to put it in Club. No, I'm joking. I'm going to put it in Pro. Superfly 7 / the Vapor 13. Now I have the Vapor of this, and for a lot of people, this was regarded in terms of performance as the Mercurial. And I would agree to a certain extent in terms of everything apart from comfort. I had a bit of an issue breaking it in. I had like the heel dig into the back of my foot, but you know, after that, it's just like a dream to wear. Responsive, comfortable after a while, and a lot of great colorways along with it as well. So after that, I'm just going to put that in Elite tier as well. With the Vapor 14 / the Superfly 8, Nike got rid of the Flyknit. They replaced it with the Vapor Posit upper, and I actually have a pair of the Superfly 8 myself. I haven't worn it too much, but from the times I've worn it, it is actually quite comfortable. I found it much easier to break in than the previous generation of the Flyknit. Yeah, it's a very similar boot. It's just the upper that's really changed. So again, and then in terms of memorability, there's not many. I don't say there's anything too memorable about the boot, except the fact that, you know, Vinicius is still wearing them, but that's because of contract issues. Lewandowski was wearing them for a while. I think that was, I don't even know what that was as well. Haaland was wearing them until he re-signed with Nike. But yeah, all around a very solid boot. I'm going to put in Pro because in terms of like the other stuff, in terms of like ads or aesthetics, it wasn't really up there in my opinion. So I'm going to put it in Pro. Last but certainly not least, we have the latest Mercurial, and that is the Nike Mercurial Air Zoom. I'm not going to use the numbers of, what is it, Superflight 9 or Vapor 15, whatever it is now. I'm not going to use, I'll just say Air Zoom Mercurial. So yeah, Nike have got rid of the kind of two-piece, or I can't remember I can't remember the name of the sole plate anyway. Yeah, so they've put the airbag inside the Nike Mercurial now, and I've recently just bought a pair of Depop. They're a lot more padded and comfortable than I thought they'd be as well. Even though I know they're used, but like even for Mercurial, you say okay, they feel even more comfortable than the ones I've worn in for a few years, and from that I think they're going to be a very good boot from a performance standpoint. But again, with the Air Zoom, I feel it's a bit overhyped in the sense that I feel like because Nike have used it before in like the Tiempo all those years back, I think it's not something groundbreaking. I think maybe it's groundbreaking the way they've used it as such, but I wouldn't put in the kind of revolutionary other Mercurial spots. I don't think anything stands about too much in terms of that way. In terms of colorways, it's quite hit and miss. I've got the Disruption colorway. So Disruption is the launch colorway Nike have been using, or the name for the launch colorways Nike have been using for the last few years. And again, just because of like the performance side of it, it's not necessarily a bad boot. It's not necessarily a great boot as well. It's a good boot, but so I'm just gonna put it in pro. Is, ladies and gentlemen, my Nike Mercurial tier list. Comment down below how you'd rank them. If you agree, if you disagree, let me know. If you like football boot content, that's all I pretty much do. Well, I do other stuff, I do grips, so I do pretty much all football apparel. So if that's your thing, be sure to also subscribe to the channel. And once again, my name is SubStanceFtbl. This has been SubStanceFtbl. Thank you for watching. Peace out.